Hello, nerds! Nerds for Humanity. This is a very interesting interview, to say the least. It is with John McAfee. I just want to give a little preface that John goes pretty far out there, in my opinion. He's definitely a very kind of fired up libertarian. John's definitely a fired up libertarian. He's probably a little bit further to the extreme than most of the people on this channel, and myself included. But, we're all about conversations with people who have different points of view, who are willing to talk about hard problems and provide their perspective. So with that, I just wanted to give a little preface that the positions that John takes in this interview, I probably agreed with maybe only about 5% of them, but it's a great conversation. He definitely doesn't mince words, and I'm grateful that he came on the show. So with that, let's get on to the interview. Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds.
Oh my God, that's quite a baritone you've got there. Welcome to the show, John McAfee. Such a pleasure to have you.
Well, thanks very much for having me on, Tom. I'm flattered that you considered it.
Well, when you start a virus company, you probably have a little bit of nerd in you. What were you like growing up? Just out of curiosity.
I was a typical nerd, really. I made straight A's in school. Math came easy to me. I read science fiction novels starting from the age of 7 in grade school. The grade school library had 2 or 3 Robert Heinlein novels. Starship Troopers, I think, was one. Way ahead of my time. I mean, but nevertheless, I picked up and read them and understood a little of them. I was not exactly nerdy with women. I got an early start with women, and spent way too much time chasing, dancing, metaphorically.
That sounds like a nerd's dream come true. Good at math and not unpopular with the ladies.
I was not unpopular with the ladies. But the rest of me was just pure nerd, no question. Technology, science, science fiction were what I lived by.
And did you go into entrepreneurship right after college, or how did you start?
Way before college. How did I start? Let's see, my first entrepreneurial job, I was in, I think, Salem, Virginia. I was 11, maybe. Took my dad's lawnmower on weekends in the summer and after school, and went around knocking on doors. Want me to mow your lawn? Well, nobody likes to mow lawns, especially back then when no one had a riding mower. It was all just push mowers. And so I'd charge a couple of bucks and mow lawns. And in the wintertime, I'd take a snow shovel and go out and shovel walks. I got a paper route when I was 13, I think. And then doubled its size, purchased another paper route next to it, made a fair amount of money. I hired kids to actually deliver the papers for me. The paper routes are entrepreneurial. You don't work for the newspaper company. No, you buy the newspapers, you sell them to your customers, and then every Saturday you go around, collect the money, take your share, and give the rest to the company. So that was an entrepreneurial job. And my first year in college, I sold magazines, pots and pans. I sold vacuum cleaners, whatever I could get my hands on that I could sell, working for companies. So I guess I started at 12.
Yeah. And then I know there's been a lot of living between then and now. But in light of the time we have, I'd love to kind of jump into some current events. I mean, first of all, you are running as part of a presidential ticket to be part of the Libertarian Party. How's that going?
That's my second run. My first run was in 2016. I came in third for the nomination. It was my first political foray, oddly enough, out of
Congratulations.
10 or 12 contenders. This time, listen, I think I've got a fair fair chance of getting the nomination. Oddly enough, based on polling and based on preliminary primaries in North Carolina and South Carolina. I tied with Hornberger in North Carolina and won South Carolina. So I don't know. It's crazy to me. I'm just being myself. I have no platform. People ask what I would do in such and such circumstance. I have no idea. Nobody does. No, this is the truth. I'm sorry, Tom. Let's get realistic. If given the fact that our government for 50 years has operated behind a veil of secrecy, while at the same time invading the privacy of the citizens, so that we as citizens have no secrets, but the government is nothing but secrets, in lieu of the fact that the government is known to provide disinformation, propaganda, whatever serves its purpose, then how in the world am I going to know anything? People go, what would you do in the Middle East? Why should I know? I mean, first of all, I don't speak Arabic. I know very little about religion, the culture, the political alliances, the history. Good Lord, why ask me? And if anybody does tell you what they would do, then one of two things is absolutely certain. They're either lying to you or they're lying to themselves, which is even worse. So I'm not here to be president. I'm John McAfee. If anybody thinks that's possible, then you need to move out of your mother's basement. No, I'm just running to point to obvious facts that people just simply can no longer see. I don't have any freedom anymore. You're living in America in a virtual police state. Even without coronavirus, still in a virtual police state. A government that has gone insane, overburdened. What percentage is it now? Over 30% of all of our gross national product goes to funding this thing that we call the government. It's gone from being a servant, which is its duty. That's the Constitution. Who is the government serve? The people. Build our roads, get a standing army, defend the country, and leave us the heck alone. And up until 1913, we didn't even have an income tax. That was, by the way, that is an unconstitutional and illegal thing that was passed temporarily in 1913 to help fund World War. But as with all things that are passed by governments, they're never repealed. In any case, I could go on forever, Tom. Let's move on.
Well, I'm curious about how a libertarian primary even works, because it seems like most of the candidates are for a dramatic reduction in the size of government. So how do you differentiate yourself from other libertarian candidates? Why McAfee versus anyone else?
I'm not asking, in fact, if you go to my website, I say, don't vote for me. It's a waste. I'm not running against anybody, Tom. I'm just on the stage running. There's a big difference. I don't have any competitors. I don't care who wins this process. I really don't. In terms of, because it doesn't matter in the end. First of all, no libertarian, no matter who's nominated, is going to be the president. If anybody believes that, then you need to reopen your history books, your political books. Political parties never increase in number. They start with 3, 4, 5, and then go down to 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, 3, and finally 1. That's what happens always. Do you think America is going to be different? And it seems pretty well chugging away, toward that. We have a two-party system which is so polarized that I fear any day we'll see congressmen leap across the aisle with knives and start stabbing each other. There's so much animosity. This is the problem. Why on earth do we have a governmental system which is at war with itself? Good God, do you not see the problem? So parties are the problem. number one. Um, and again, we could kind of go on that. But no, I'm not running against anybody. I'm not trying to differentiate myself. I'm not asking for anybody's vote, even though I'm getting them, even though I say don't. I didn't campaign, for example, in North Carolina. Didn't campaign. And I tied with Hornberger for first place. I didn't even show up. I didn't have a staff there, and yet I tied for first. I didn't have a staff in South Carolina. I won South Carolina. I mean, well, to see that, I don't really know how this works. Why are people voting for me when I say I don't have a platform, I'm not running against anybody, and I have no competitors?
So why run? If you don't believe that the Libertarian nomination will result in that nominee winning, why spend the time even putting yourself on the ballot?
Because it gives access to the national stage, like it did in 2016. I got on, John Stossel's Fox News debate nationwide. That's why. I think I have something to say, and I've got 1 million followers on Twitter, and I talk to podcasters like yourself, and what's wrong with adding another national stage? That's all.
So let's talk about your view on some issues. And I know I'm not asking for you to give like a specific policy.
Excuse me. Yes.
No worries. Yeah. So let's talk about some issues. I'm not asking for you to give a specific policy on every item that we can think of.
I'll tell you what I think about the world. No problem.
Yeah. So like, for example, right now we have a lot of interesting foreign policy challenges with either China when it comes to culpability for potentially, not being more transparent about the spread of the coronavirus, or Russia for potential interference with the last election. As a libertarian, or just as an American, what do you think is the right course of action with regards to those countries?
Remove ourselves from any interaction with them whatsoever if it's a problem for us. I mean, what right do we have telling Russia or China or the Middle East or anyone how to act? Good Lord. America's been doing this for, 60 years? Since the end of World War II. Mm-hmm. America got the bomb, and we suddenly became the world ruler. Why? We got the bomb, you don't, until Russia came out with it. And then the Cold War started. Why the hell? Do you understand we have problems at home? I mean, good Lord, we are trillions of dollars in debt, for heaven's sake. We have unemployment. We've got all kinds of issues. Why on earth are we concerning ourselves with China? If China crosses our border, then let's take action. If not, leave them the fuck alone. Excuse my language.
No worries. Let me play devil's advocate with you for a minute. I mean, some people would argue that it's important to have a thriving and stable international trade regime, and that we as the largest economy benefit from that full world trade system. And so therefore we have to project force well outside our borders to maintain the system that has benefited Americans for decades. Why is that so unreasonable?
What you're telling Mr. Young is that you're saying that there are some people who actually believe that international trade needs force. Jesus God, what kind of trade is that? If that's required, then fuck it. It can't do us any good. It is not possible. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people listening to you who actually have these thoughts. Where does that come from? You understand that trade is the most friendly of all human interactions. I've got a chicken. I need a cow, or an eighth of a cow, or whatever a chicken is worth. I've got 4 eggs, and I've got 5 chickens at home. How about a loaf of bread? There is nothing more friendly to turn it into something with force. We're forcing this. We're going to negotiate that down. Please God, how does that help America? Look at America. Look at our streets in Los Angeles. Millions of fucking homeless people. And we need to apply force to China. Are you crazy people? Please wake up. Please, this is our problem. Why does America solve problems with force? We've got the armies. We have bases in most of the countries in the world where we keep our army. What if China said, I'm going to put a base in Houston, Texas? No, what difference does it? That's the same thing, people. Same thing. We must stop believing that we know what's right. How many of our presidents in the past and Congress even speak fluent Russian, Cantonese, Beijinghua? How many speak Arabic, Farsi? How many even speak Spanish, for fuck's sake? And we're surrounded by Spanish people all over the world. So, no, what right do we have? What sense does it make to leave our borders for anything other than travel? Let's go to the Mayan coast of Mexico and soak up some sun and sunshine, or let's go to Hawaii. Of course, that's America, or the South Pacific. No, we have no reason to be out of our country for anything other than delivering the goods that people want from us, or opening our ports to have them delivered to us. Can you tell me, sir, what more is necessary?
What if someone were to say, okay, maybe we don't need to project military force overseas for the
Right.
reasons you described, but we do need to be hard negotiators when it comes to trade relations with other countries.
Absolutely. But what's the government got to do with trade relations, for heaven's sake? Does the government manufacture goods and services? If so, they're doing the wrong goddamn thing. No, we, the people, manufacture, sell, service, something. And this is what does the government have to do with our trade? This is the problem all over the world. What's a government for? To build roads, to get a standing army? I mean, look in the Constitution. Did it say, oh, and the government should also help you out in making a living? No.
So let's take an example where I believe in the 90s, I don't want to pick on the Chinese, but we have an example where the Chinese were accused at a minimum of selling steel to U.S. manufacturers at below the cost of producing that steel as an attempt to undermine domestic steel producers. And a lot of people felt that the government should get involved and insist.
Why? In other words, if we as Americans cannot produce steel cheaper than another country, you're going to get the government involved? No, get the people to say, listen, what happened to us people that we actually are getting shipped steel that costs less from other countries? Please, people. No, let's either get out of the steel business or let's tighten our fucking belts. And let's do it. And if you're a car manufacturer, and if you get steel cheaper from Mexico, and it's still good quality steel, and they're paying you $1,000 a ton to take it, well, God damn it, take it. I mean, it makes no sense to me to get governments involved in business, because trade is business. Governments want to make it a national issue. Well, fuck that shit. It's not. It's a corporate, entrepreneurial, individual issue. It has nothing to do with governments, and nor should it ever.
What would you say if, let's say in that example, the Mexican steel, let's say the Mexican government was subsidizing those Mexican producers, giving them an unfair advantage versus the American producer?
Unfair advantage. What the fuck does that mean? Unfair advantage? Have you ever started a business, Mr. Young? I have, many of them. There is no such thing as an unfair goddamn advantage. There's an advantage or there's not. Whether you stole it or whether you had a spy take it from inside your own corporation, if that turns into a criminal issue, so be it. Shouldn't it not be a governmental issue? What is an unfair advantage, sir?
Okay, let's not say an unfair advantage. Let's just say a foreign government.
Because we just differ on this, and we're getting nowhere. Try another question, Mr. Long.
Okay. So next question: how would you evaluate President Trump's performance?
I don't know President Trump. I've never even had dinner with the man, never shaken his hand. How in the hell would I know? And how would you know? How would anybody know? All of our information comes from the mainstream media. And you want to say, but that's correct? Well, when I've seen Trump start saying things on stage, well, so fucking what? He may be talking for an hour and you watch a mainstream media clip of 38 seconds and you think you understand what he said. Please, God, people, wake up. I don't
Then
know.
how should people vote?
Pardon?
How should people how does the democratic system work if the assertion is that people have, incomplete information or insufficient information?
That's a question, isn't it? Do you think we have sufficient information, Tom? If so, you show me where that information is.
Well, I mean, what's the alternative? How do we decide who runs the country?
Well, that is the question, isn't it? But before that question, Tom, is a far more important question. That is, does it matter? Do you actually think? Because I've lived for 74 years. I've seen a whole bunch of elections in America. I have never seen a single hair shifted on a single person's head when a change of power happens in Washington. I've seen all sorts of attempts. Obama spent an entire 4 years building Obamacare, which we all knew. Why are you doing that? They just want to take it apart. Did they? Yes. Nothing ever changes. Now, if you don't want to take that approach, let's take another approach, Tom. How about the approach of what do presidents base their decisions on? Do you think they make decisions in a vacuum? No. The president sit down in the Oval Office being ordinary people. Well, not that ordinary. Most of them are fairly greedy politicians, and they have many talents, most of which involve ways to line their pockets with taxpayers' money. If you doubt that, please look at how many millionaires there are in Congress and how many millionaires actually were voted into Congress. Everybody in Congress who's been there for 4 years is a multi-millionaire. None of them were before. Does that not strike you as odd, sir? Strikes me as extremely odd. So they have talents in lining their pockets, but presidents, when they make a decision, they go, well, what am I going to do with Iraq? Let's see, I speak Farsi and Arabic, so I should be able to watch the news there and try to get a closer thing. No, they don't. They're fucking politicians. They barely can speak English, some of them. And so let me give an example from the second Gulf War. So Bush, sitting in his office, and the CIA decides, listen, we've tried whacking Saddam, we've tried doing everything. This has bombed him into the Stone Age. Fred, you and Jim, by the way, do you know what the CIA calls presidents?
No.
Transients. Transient. Because the CIA are full-time, lifelong employees and patriots. They are, trust me. We go, oh, the CIA, they're horrible. Well, maybe, but they're the most patriotic group in our government, that's for sure. They don't seem to make any decision that in some way does not benefit at least the U.S. government, if not its people. So now they're going to bomb it. So what do? Okay, Fred, you and Jim make the president make it happen, and to send the congressional team of 2,800 people in and make sure the congressmen are all on board. What are we going to tell them, Chief? Oh, fuck, I don't care. Tell them they got nuclear weapons. That's got to do it. So what did they? Mr. Bush, please sit down. We have some alarming news that I am quite frankly glad I do not have to deal with personally. As you know, Mr. President, we're not here to advise you. We're simply here to inform you. And we'd like to tell you that Iraq has nuclear weapons now and ballistic missiles capable of reaching our closest ally, London. And we also feel, Mr. President, that within perhaps a week, they may launch a missile which will remove London from the face of this planet. Mr. President, I'm glad that you have to deal with this and not me. I know this is a burden that's a high. Now, what the fuck could he do? He immediately, 6 hours later, ordered which had already been set up by the fucking military, the bombing of Iraq into the Stone Age. And that's what happened. Did they have nuclear weapons? Of course not. Everybody knew it. The American people knew it. Europe knew it. And certainly every country in the Middle East knew it. Who did not know it? The president and Congress. Our government did not know it. Why? Because they do not operate in vacuums. And that vacuum that they come into office with is filled by not the cabinet ministers and whoever Bush selects to be the head of the CIA, because the head of the CIA got zero power and they tell him jack shit. This, sir, is the truth of our government. Number one, I've never seen a change in any way based on a change in power in Washington. Neither have I seen anything developed by one party which is not destroyed immediately by the other. And yet I've seen daily the CIA manipulate, and others. There are 14 covert agencies in America: Navy intelligence, Army intelligence, the National Security Agency, the Secret Service, on and on and on. People, all of them bending the ear of the president. And none of them is anyone able to determine the validity of the information that they're receiving. It doesn't matter then who drives this fucking car that has a broken steering wheel. It's going to go where it's going. Doesn't matter who you put in the driver's seat, people. So, Tom, you ask why I'm running. It's so that I can, on the national stage, say the truth like this. Stop worrying about these fucking political parties. Whoever they're going to produce for you is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be driven by hatred and greed. People, is this what you want? And people in America, Tom, spend, or they elect people who spend millions of dollars to be president. We are that stupid. A man or a woman, yeah, I'm going to spend $100 million for president. But wait a minute, doesn't the job only pay $300,000? I mean, please, doesn't add up. No, we elect them anyway. Do you see how stupid we are?
So in that example, John, where we were talking about the Iraq War, wouldn't it have been possible that had George W. Bush not been president, that it had been a more sort of pro-diplomacy or less kind of international intervention leader, that would have made a difference, that we may not have invaded Iraq?
Let's say you were sitting in the Oval Office, okay? And you don't know jack shit because you're a politician and just out of the clear blue sky. Now you're one that wants diplomacy. Mm-hmm. Two serious gentlemen come in with all the documents saying, sir, our closest ally, London, is going to be leveled to the ground by a nuclear explosion within a few days. What are you going to do? And you say, well, let's just negotiate. Iraq is not negotiating with anybody. That much at least coming into office. And the CIA says you've only got a few hours to decide whether to stop Iraq from destroying Europe or, Tom, get real with yourself first. This is the problem with politicians, right? They actually believe the nonsense that comes out of their mouths. For a fact, you would say, push the button.
Well, I don't know about that. I might say, well, let's inform them that if they perform this act, that we will retaliate with 100 times.
They know that. Duh. I mean, for God's sake, what they think they're going to bomb London and nothing's going to happen? Fuck me, Tom. Please, God, move on. Next subject.
Okay. The last topic, I know we only have a couple minutes left. Since it is timely, there's a lot of energy about the COVID-19 pandemic, and I've seen you talk about it in the past. And so I know that your view is that many of us are overreacting. What you think motive for this, if it is such a big overreaction, what's the incentive for people to do that? Who's benefiting from this?
Who's benefiting? The mainstream media is certainly benefiting. I mean, do you understand that the value of media is the number of eyeballs that sort of more or less subscribe to your channel, times the amount of time those eyeballs are glued to your channel. Prior to lockdown, what was that number? It was a few hours a week for most people. Mondays through Fridays, we get up early and brush our teeth and kiss our spouses goodbye and commute to the office, spend 8 hours there, commute back home, and we're lucky to get an hour in front of the TV. And weekends, well, if we're young, we're out dating, sniffing pussy. If we're family, we take our family to the parks. We're not glued to that box. Now, what's happened since lockdown, 24 hours a day? The world is glued to the box. Now, that has to be shared between the various channels, but a factor of 10, Tom, the value of media has increased. Now, they're going to say we're losing money. Of course they are. No one's advertising. But the habituation caused by 2 solid months of being locked in your house with nothing to do but watch TV. No, this is the lasting effect. So that's one game. Let's look at governments around the world. You can't show me a single government, a single president, a single dictator, chancellor, prime minister that does not want more power. If you do, they're definitely lying to you, and you're lying to yourself, because we all know that power, in fact, corrupts and seeks more of itself. And this has been the way the world works for 5,000 years, ever since recorded history in India and China. So, who's gaining in there? Everybody. Look at what happened in America. The FBI definitely gained. This $2 trillion package included an emergency bill that if the FBI, if there's a state of emergency declared, it didn't say exactly what those criteria for declaring a state of emergency were. But if a state of emergency is declared, which can be done by the party in power, I assume, the president, for example, to which the FBI reports, then the FBI now can arrest anybody for any charge and no charge. You don't need a charge to detain. Read what's happened here just in America. Only in a state of emergency, but who gets to choose that? No, detain anybody indefinitely. What does indefinitely mean? For life, if necessary. Do you understand? So they gained. Good God, Tom, everybody gained except the people.
So last question, John, how does that end? Like, it looks like we're about to reopen gradually. Do you think this will just go down in history as this huge power grab and then we went on our merry way? Or do you think this is something else?
Well, we said go down in history. Well, Tom, history is written by the people in power. So I'm not one of those. And so I don't know how it's going to go down in history. It's going to depend a lot on the people, and the people seem to be doing nothing. They willingly gave up their freedoms, were given tickets or sometimes beaten and arrested if they're out on the streets illegally. But what does that mean? There is no law in this country saying you cannot be out on the streets. They're just using emergency powers that simply do not exist. I don't know. It's going to depend on us. I do know this, that if enough people get disturbed enough, then that's the greatest power on earth, always has been. If you look at every great revolution where the citizens were put down to the point that it was absurd, the French Revolution, I mean, and this is how absurd governments become. When the Queen of France was told why the people were rioting in the streets, and they go, well, Your Majesty, there's no bread for the people. She said, there's no bread? Well, let them eat cake. That was it. That was her dictate, her decree. Well, 2 days later, France was burning, and the world changed. Look at the Russian Revolution. It didn't matter that the Tsar was running one of the most powerful militaries in the entire world. The palace guard had horses and sabers and guns, and the people had nothing but pitchforks. Who won? The people. The people always win because the basis, the foundation, the roots, the source, the existence of governments depend upon a populace that they control. We are the base of the pyramid. We build the roads and the facilities, the yachts, the airplanes, everything. We are.
John,
Yes.
John, you cannot compare America to France before its revolution. I mean, so many people have had increases in their quality of life and their median income over the last several decades. Are you exaggerating?
Have you told that to the people, the millions living homeless in the streets of America? I'm sure they would like to hear that, exactly how far they have advanced and improved.
Well, certainly there are a lot of people that have been left behind, but as a whole, we probably have created more wealth in America over the last 50 years than most empires.
No, questionably, but the people didn't get it, Tom. No, the wealth. Who has the wealth? Bill Gates and Larry Ellison and Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak and for a while me and the captains of fucking industry and government. Every president is now almost worth $100 million. Everybody who has been in Congress for more than 5 years is worth $10 million. I mean, yes, the wealth is immense, but not the people. And if you doubt me, look at the lowest. Look at the lowest. Please, God, go into Sweden and try to find a fucking homeless person.
Would you ever be in favor of a universal basic income? Or do you feel like that's too much government?
For what?
To help some of those homeless people you were talking about.
They don't want it, Tom. I've been homeless. I have been with these people. I can promise you that's not what we wanted. We just wanted goddamn recognition and some sympathy, some fucking love from a society for which we were not even fucking human. I have sat on sidewalks in San Francisco begging for fucking a quarter. Little old ladies look the other way. People don't want to acknowledge I even fucking existed, Tom. So don't tell me about something you've never fucking experienced and say that, oh, but this is what they would want, because I swear to God, that's not what they fucking want. But thank you very much for that. I've enjoyed this very much, Tom.
Yeah, John, I appreciate you spending time with the Nerds for Humanity Nation, and clearly a thought-provoking conversation, and I hope that we'll be able to have another one in the future. But with the time left, I'm just going to say goodbye, nerds, and if you will join me.
Yeah, I will indeed.
So you'll say goodbye, nerds, John?
I'm going to momentarily. Let me lead up to it. I am a prototypical fucking nerd. That thing, that entity, generally a social outcast, never quite fit in, but I had my dreams. My dreams were of science and mathematics and future societies, and to a certain extent, games, different games back then. But before I say goodbye, it is you that are going to take over this fucking world. If anybody's going to fix it, why? You've got the goddamn brains, all right? You do. I mean, I'm sorry. The weight of brains in the nerd community is it outweighs everything else. But in order for you to do anything, you have to fucking use your brain. And stop believing anything that anybody tells you, at least as all the mainstream media. It's all lies, calculated over years of honing and polishing and looking fucking real. But no, it's fake. It's a game. It's a charade. You people are smart enough to do something about it. And you don't need girls. You don't need social approval. You just need your own goddamn intellect and your own will and your collectivity as a fucking group. We are all one, nerds. All right? And with that, I will say goodbye and good luck.